Hey everyone, this is Mr. Everything, and today I wanted to do a 2022 review for the 2020 iPad Pro. This is the 11-inch model, and this, as you can see, has the a Magic Keyboard that I've actually been using with it the whole time. I think it's pretty much like the way to go with it. I have another case, but I never use it, so I definitely want to make sure I include that in the review. But I think first off, I'm just going to start with the condition that the iPad's in. About a little over a year later, I got it around holiday season in 2020. So here is just the screen off. The first thing I did, and it's kind of, I guess, like a habit, as soon as I get an Apple device, I go ahead and put a glass screen protector on it. Certainly, the main thing I don't like is it's way too reflective now, as you can tell. And in addition to that, it kind of cuts down on the light reflection, like that anti-reflective coating, since this glass is on top. This glass reflects pretty good. And you can kind of still see, like, obviously the screen here is white. The reflection of my computer monitor is white. And it still is like that dark, almost violet, kind of black light looking, if that makes any sense. So it still has that, but this top piece is still reflective. But one advantage is a little bit easier to glide on. They have kind of more of a slickness to them. But it's done its job. Like, see, there's really no scratches in it. I did notice when I was cleaning it off, I have like one, but that's no big deal at all. And then since it's always in the keyboard, it's fine. It did come with this extra glass piece to cover the camera assembly. Normally I wouldn't go ahead with something like that, but since this one protrudes, I did it. But again, since the Magic Keyboard has a cutout for it, it pretty much lays flush, so you wouldn't have to, but I just put it on anyway. I rarely use the iPad's camera, so I don't think that, and I don't think it really degraded the quality anyway. But this is definitely the better looking. So this is, of all iPads, this one probably would be pretty nice, because I usually just use that, well, they don't make just the regular flap. I don't remember what it's called now, smart cover. Now you have like that folio, which I have. I always have to get one as soon as I get it, in case you would drop it, to protect it. But I ended up getting a good deal on this Magic Keyboard and went with that, and I've been using it ever since. So you really don't get to see this nice back of this nice darker space gray, but it's held up well. I think I'll actually just start out showing this without the iPad in it. You can see it's held up like it's discolored. You can kind of see it retains fingerprints. Not so much, like, well, I guess like any keyboard, really, it's kind of just that oil kind of ends up imprinting into it. I don't really think it would come out, but you can kind of see where it's shinier here from your hands. I've seen videos where people that, you know, have these for a while, they get like this. Now, they do make skins for it. I think just the decal ones look stupid, but there's like the higher end ones that you can get like a synthetic leather or like a synthetic thin little marble looking one. A little more stylish, but it wouldn't fit perfectly, so there'd be some contrast. I don't know, I'd kind of rather just use it the way it is, and maybe if it would get all torn up, then I would just have no choice but to put a cover over it. But I mean, even the bottom here, and most of it's just literally on my overweight stomach, mostly in bed, but a lot of times, yeah, setting it on tables and such, you can scratch it up. Or if I take it outside, like if I'm working on a car, I might, usually I would just use my phone for that, but if I needed something bigger, nothing's really torn it up. So the hinge is actually holding up well too. So you have this first point of articulation, and then it all goes together. It still keeps, you can see, like, it's obviously easier when you have the weight of the iPad in it, but it maintains that tension the whole way through. And then this piece here, this doesn't, you can kind of fluff it back up. It doesn't get matted down just having the iPad sitting in it. Only point of wear, when I never actually use this, I just, you know, it's just not something I use. You can kind of see like this edge frayed a little bit, but it's been like that forever and it's never gotten any worse. So I thought it would all just like start to peel, but it really hasn't. So that's good. It's kind of doing the same thing there, but it still looks good. The trackpad's pretty good. I mean, it'd be nice to be a little bigger. I don't have the 12-inch model. I'm not sure if the trackpad's any bigger or if they just kept it the same. Hopefully it's a little bigger. So that'd be something, but it could be way worse. I think even my Microsoft Surface, I think I have like the 3, so it's like really old. I don't even know if it's this big, but I don't know how to really type here through the viewfinder, but I can type way quicker with this keyboard than I can on-screen one or dictation, I'd rather just, and then so for me, I'm kind of just focusing on the hardware and how it's held up. I think that's kind of the most relevant type of review. And you can see everything, and this keyboard does light up. So I think I'm just going to set it all together and get a little more focused on the software side. And I'll go ahead and boot it up. It's one thing I don't like, you got to sit here and hold it. I thought back in like the old days, you could kind of just press it in for a second and it would come on. Now you got to hold it for like 5 or 6 seconds. And it's not like the fastest boot up, but it's not like a computer where you have to shut it down. I mean, I might turn it on and off every so often just to keep it a little more data cleaned on it, memory. And real quick, I'll just show that the keyboard does light up. So, I mean, that helps. Since it's right here, I mean, this light of this that comes off the screen's more than enough, but for what you're paying for these, which is pretty ridiculous, it is, welcomed addition. It probably does drain the battery life because actually anytime you touch the screen, so you're just scrolling through some comments, it'll still bring this on anytime it senses any type of input. I think even if you just tilt the device to different orientation. So with that in mind, I really never checked, but I'm sure there is probably a setting to just turn the light off altogether. It might get you a little better battery life, but it's an iPad, so you still get good battery life to begin with. So here's the home screen. This is like the widgets I'm working on. I mean, I guess now reminds me of like Android 10 years ago or longer. But I think you can kind of move these around, but I just keep them the way they are, just off to the side. It might be the iPhone I'm thinking of, but I think now you can actually integrate the widget more into the home page, but I keep it off to the side. So these are, I think it's WDGTS, a couple dollars, and you can unlock the full version. It's kind of buggy, it doesn't work perfect, but I just use the calendar and the calculator, and then I used to have a monitor for like the RAM and everything, but I use this usage. It's a much newer version. This is the old style widget. I'm not like into Apple stuff as much because now I got something that works. But you can kind of see these are the old style, so they go here, and then the newer ones are in their own separate block. This one does have a newer one, but I like you got more information in this block on this old style. This iPad uses 6 gigs of RAM, so it kind of is nice to keep an eye on it. It's not too bad since you have a little bit more for iOS or iPad OS, but that's what I'm working with there. And honestly, mostly what I use this for, I'm sure it's different for everyone, but my Gmail, managing, reading email, YouTube's like the heavy majority of all of it's watching YouTube. And then I edit my videos on here as well, but you can also use the YouTube Studio app, which that's mostly just good for checking your analytics. And you can do your tags and everything, but I prefer either doing that on a desktop, I use Mac Mini, or you can go into the mobile or the browser version. It's usually easier if you use Safari because it always defaults to desktop view. But if you go into Chrome and you go to the home page desktop layout and then go into Creator Studio, you can still get the full desktop thing. It's a little easier to do your ads. I think you can only do ads through that. and through your tags and all that, the cards and all that. So I do sometimes use this. It's kind of nice to have that option. That's why you need this keyboard to really use it like a computer. Now, don't beat me up too bad, but I'm still on iOS 14. Probably to make a long story like slightly not as long, I just choose to block OTA updates. I actually think it's something you can't do anymore, at least maybe if you're jailbroken or something, but I did it with the tvOS beta profile and it would just block the update. Very safe and easy to do. Since I had the original iPod Touch 2G way back in the day, but since I got an iPhone again in 2015, every year of iOS, since I would always not have that brand new product, it would like work good, then the next iOS would make it too slow or add a feature I didn't like, or battery life wouldn't be good, or it'd have bugs. So then they would fix it, and then you'd enjoy it, and then it would be bad again, and you have to wait a whole year. So I just block it. This 14's worked really well for me. I don't know if there's any problems with 15, but that's just what I'm using it for. So maybe in due time I'll have to update, or if I get a new device, then you have to go with, whatever at least came with it. But you can see, so that's just, for me, I don't know if the newer update would slow it down or not. I think everything's pretty capable at this point, what they put in chipset-wise. So yeah, usually have the, you can have multiple inboxes, so I have some different ones as well, and I can just keep that open in the background. But I think you can see like everything works pretty well. Usually, as with most things, the most bottleneck I have is just my internet. But with me, I'm pretty happy. And actually, one thing I want to touch on while I'm thinking about it is HDR. This isn't an HDR display, but HDR kind of does work, maybe just because it gets bright enough. And maybe I'll even try and show just a little clip that this is the 2020 iPad. The 12.9 or 12 point, whatever that other one is, the 2021 version does have that mini LED display, which some people said doesn't actually look that good, but it has the HDR capabilities built in. So I'm not sure if I ran an Apple app, the Apple TV app movie that has HDR, because it doesn't inform you, but on YouTube it does. And I did notice it is brighter. So there's different ones you can pick from. And another thing you can kind of tell on this white screen, it's not, pure white, but you can see like there's nice uniformity. There's no like hot spots. The kind of forgetting all my iPad history now, but the 10.5-inch Pro from a couple years back, that one had really noticeable hot spots and everyone complained about it, and you could actually even see it on the camera. I think this was the video that I had used prior. So you can kind of probably see it's a little bit brighter actually. And you actually get the HDR to show up here. So I'll just force it on 1080. Obviously, recording through a screen to your screen and everything, it's not going to really show. But it is brighter than what a standard YouTube video would do. So I don't know if it boosts up the lume or the nits somehow to do that. But at least on my end, it is a little bit brighter than, so you would actually, like, is this video in HDR? Because you could just tell if you were watching a bunch of SDR videos. Now, obviously, on my iPhone, the OLED display, when you use HDR, it looks better than my TV's HDR, because it's actually, the phone screen can get really bright and you really notice it. So this isn't anywhere near it, but I just want to throw that in as well. I really don't know how much else again, I just used some browsing, so, have this open. I might have a few tabs if I'm looking at different things or open up eBay. But that's basically what it comes down to. Just online shopping, things like that, and YouTube. And as usual, you get that smooth scroll, so you can see like everything's real nice and fluid. And then it will take a toll, so you can see the RAM's already gone way down. And as you continue to use it, it seems to cache a little bit. Even if you close the apps, you don't get all of it back. You can see some came back there. but not that big. I mean, it obviously is apps update and everything's it always just uses more because you get a little more out of the whole experience. So that's just what it is. In that regard, the newer one, I think you get 8 gigs and then 16 if you buy like the top storage model, but that's probably not practical for most people. And then battery life, I think all iPads, they pretty much market them at 10 hours. I do believe this is the only iPad I bought brand new from the store. Usually when I buy a used iPad on eBay, they're still like new because you can just tell like everything looks perfect. It's probably some person that has an iPhone and they just kind of sit it there and just really never use their iPad. So my battery life's always been 8-9 hours because I have the screen maybe a little bit bright. I don't use the True Tone. I don't use the adaptive, lighting based on the sensor, how bright your room is, because that throws it off too much. I will say this iPad brand new probably was around 8 hours or so, maybe a little more. But once you add in the Magic Keyboard, that does drain it significantly. So if you were getting, we'll say 8.5, you're probably getting more like 7, or I always charge it, when it gets below 20, maybe you could get a little more, but it is probably a good hour to maybe even 2 hours less, depending on how much typing you're doing. I've also thought, if I'm just watching a video, if you got like a little thin piece of plastic or something to block those pogo pins, but still keep the magnetic backing, you could kind of cut off the power so it doesn't drain from the keyboard. But I never really found the need to do it. I can easily still get through a day. And if I'm not watching YouTube or, actually really consuming on it, I could go 2 days if you just kind of had it in the background just to check things and browse and not really just sit there and really take in something. And then whatever this graph might mean, it's really not accurate as what I use it for, because since I was going to make this video, I went through all my games because I was going to test those out. And of course, all your games need updated. So some of these sat on updates like Real Racing, which actually didn't even work. And then I went through, so normally these aren't accessed regularly. Sometimes I'll get into game mood, but I prefer to play on console. So that screen on time's not too bad. Of course, I had a charge period in there. So if you can figure out, the true length of that, go ahead. But like I said, it's probably 7 to 8 hours. I don't use it constantly that long, so it's hard to really, but I just ballpark's about 7 to 8 hours. It charges respectably, again, as long as you don't use this keyboard, because this is a slower one. So I use a Type-C. I think I use just the 20 watt, because you can use a fast charge that goes beyond that, but I like to do a little slower to hopefully preserve that battery health. So I use the 20 watt with the 6-foot USB-C Apple cable, and probably about 3 hours. So not bad. I personally just plug it in before I go to bed, and then it's ready in the morning. But you could use a fast charger and get a little more, but even that regular 20 watts still probably get 50% in 45 minutes or so. And the last thing I'll touch on is gaming. I really don't do that much gaming on it, but it's actually nice with this Magic Keyboard because you can set it on your bed, or again, I really wouldn't do it at a desk because then I would just either play I don't have a gaming PC, but I would rather just turn around, play on the TV or something like that. Now, I was able to play Call of Duty Mobile prior to the last update, which seems to just mess things up for me. And I was running it at the high settings, I think like one step down from Ultra. And I was running at the highest frame rate option, and most of the effects were on. And it would drain the battery a good bit. I mean, you'd probably go down maybe 10% per half hour, maybe even a little more, actually. And I was using the SteelSeries Nimbus Plus controller. I have a video on that. And if, actually I could even link that, and I show some gameplay. But I really don't use the iPad too much for gaming. And to me, like if I wanted to play a mobile game, I'd rather play like an Angry Birds or something that involves swipe. So it actually feels like a mobile game instead of a watered down console game, which are unplayable to me if the on-screen, controller showing up. You have to use a physical controller, in my opinion. So I did put a lot of these games on here if I would ever use them. But let me go ahead and just show you what I'm talking about here. So the boot up's not like crazy fast compared to even like the SSD consoles, but it gets the job done. So even after that quick little update I had to do, I use my Apple, like the Game Center sign in, and I get this every time. Uh, as far as like this never happened in the past year up until this last update, so that's just the way it is. I don't know what that even means. Like I have two-factor authentication, and I am signed into my iPad. I'm into iCloud, and I don't use Facebook. And then I have a Call of Duty account, but since all my progress was on the Apple version, I would assume if I signed into my Call of Duty console account, there's no mobile history, so it'd probably just wipe it all. So that's why I don't like the gaming too much. And I'll show you the exact same problem with real racing. So I'll get this prompt, which in the past, like even, I don't know, 6-7 years ago, if not longer, it would work. It'll download a few megabytes and then it'll just freeze. So I've done this before. If you open and close it a bunch of times, you can usually get enough of it downloaded to finally complete it, but it's not worth it. And again, since I use a controller, you especially would want to use this with a controller for better precision. It says that it accepts a controller and it'll show it, but then when you're actually in the race, it won't recognize it as an input device anymore, which is stupid. So controller support isn't there. And so that's been like that for a year. And then this downloading thing, when I was trying to play this a year ago when I got this iPad, because I figured it would run it well, I had this same problem. Somehow I got it to download finally, but you can see it'll just like go a few and then it just freezes. So I'm not a fan of mobile games. They just don't work. Now, again, the more basic ones, those ones don't have problems, but these watered down console ones are just nothing but bugs. Now, one game that actually does work is Asphalt 9. You can see I have 60 frames enabled. As far as I mean, I don't really play this one, but I did try it before. I'm not sure if things reset because I thought I did have some progress. This is another reason why I don't like games. It's just all the prompts that keep popping up that they force you to play it and pick the things they want you to because it's so dumbed down. And I thought that I played a little more. I don't know if progress resets on updates. But you can see, not exactly I don't even know if I can play it like this, but it does run fairly well. Not even sure how to play it without the controller, but so that's the big world-renowned gaming test. And right now I have a YouTube Premium subscription, but so I can play something in the background. But I think most iPads at this point support this, but I do like the multitasking, and you can, if I'm just listening to music or listening to podcast or something, still take this up and I have no problems. It still runs smooth. So with all that in mind, that works just great. And the iPad Pro is still completely capable of that. And then you do have the camera. It's a 12 megapixel tri-camera, very similar to the 11 Pro Max. I don't find it to be as good, but it's still usable. And again, 9 times out of 10, if not more, I'm going to use the iPhone. But if I'm taking a picture and recording something from the iPhone and I have to use the iPad, it's passable, but it's kind of cumbersome to have this big display. And really the last thing I'll talk about is just pricing, and obviously the M1 is the newer one. This is I believe it is an 8-core CPU with 6 gigs of RAM. And the M1 is also an 8-core, but it's much better. Everyone just, anyone that knows anything about the M1 knows the benchmarks and everything. I think it was really the genesis of the M1. I think the iPad was the first product that had it in it. I could be wrong, but it was early 2021. So to me, you can see this iPad's very capable. It still works fine for YouTube, daily stuff like surfing, like email, all that stuff. It works just fine. And when you can actually get a game that's designed well enough to work, it'll do that too. So if you're choosing between either of them, I think either is going to work, but I think it really just comes down to price. Obviously, in the long run, the M1 makes more sense. It's a year newer, so you got a little more support. It's going to be more powerful, but this one can get the job done as well. I will say I would not pay full price for the M1 here at the beginning of 2022. I'm sure the new version of the iPad Pros will be coming out, even if it's not an M2 and it's just like some enhanced M1. It's still going to be newer. Who knows? They might have a mini LED or something better. I don't know, but at this point, I don't think I'd pay that $800 for the new iPad Pro. So I would either try and get it used on eBay at a good deal, in good condition, or if you can get your hands on this 2020 model, that's the way I would go. And again, I haven't really priced any of this stuff, but I don't think this would be worth more than $500. Now, if it included this Magic Keyboard, or it came with some accessories like the pencil, which I don't use, I don't have one, but I don't think beyond that it'd be worth much more than $500 unless it's cellular, which most people probably don't have a need for that. I believe this is the 128 gigabyte model. So if you wanted to higher storage space, but I'm doing fine with what I have. I have my whole iTunes music library, the physical library, a few of those games and some pictures and stuff, and I still have plenty of room left over. So that's fine the way it is. And in my opinion, I'm not going to distinguish between the 11-inch and the 12-inch model. I think, again, if you get a good deal and it's just what you want and you have to go with that one, go with it. I could probably go a little bit bigger, but at that point, I think I'd rather just get a MacBook. Sometimes it would be nice to have something a little bit bigger, but I kind of think this would fit better, especially if I did get a MacBook, or if you have one or you're looking to get one, probably would make more sense to keep this kind of thing that's a little more in the middle of the road. So you still have the keyboard and all that, but it's a little more compact. And iPad OS is pretty good. I mean, you can do a lot of the stuff now, as everyone complains you don't have the Pro apps and everything. But at least with Safari, you get pretty much desktop browser on everything. You have the somewhat good Files app that it's not as good as just obviously a regular computer OS, but it gets the job done. And if you are buying an iPad and you want that HDR, as of now, the only one is the M1, the 2021 model, but it's only in that 12-inch iPad Pro. Again, it's mini LED. Some people said it had like really bad kind of blooming around it. It's hard to tell, again, from watching through someone else's camera on your screen. So I don't think I would buy one just for that, their first year of doing it. Personally, I think they should at least just go OLED. Probably would be pretty expensive. And I know in the future they were talking about the micro LED. But, I mean, iPhones are getting pretty big. So maybe they should just offer an iPad in a OLED model. It probably would cost more, just make it a separate tier. But with all the shortages and everything, I'm assuming we'll never see that. But again, you do have that little consolation of at least some YouTube HDR kind of works. So better than nothing, I guess. But I'd say to bring this whole mess into a close, for me, I bought it at November 2021. I think it was $50 on sale. Got it at my local Walmart. So it's my first brand new one. I've been taking care of it, put it in this keyboard. Keyboard works. It's as close as I can get to a laptop without being a laptop. Everything works. Condition, everything's held up well. Battery life's not as good with the keyboard attached, but it's still enough to get through a day. It's much better than any laptop brand new that I've ever had. Barring, I'm sure, a MacBook, they have great battery life. So in that regard, a MacBook is going to be better. But everything works with it. And for my daily stuff, gets the job done. So I'm not looking to upgrade just yet. I'm happy with this one. This video will probably be edited on this. And then later, once it's up, I can check on it, the analytics, and, you know, if anyone messages me telling me how much they hate me or whatever, I'll probably be looking it up on this, get the email and everything. So this has a big impact. It's used every day, a lot of different parts, entertainment, work, research, etc., all done on this iPad. And lastly, there's a whole bunch of options, you know, the newer gen, this one, Mini, the Air, which used to be the, I don't even think they have the Air now, it's just like the standard. I don't know, there's so many different ones that there's one for every price point and whatever you're looking for. So they're a great product. I use them more than my iPhone. And the 2020 non-M1 iPad Pro 11-inch, it's been great for me, and it's still holding up well. So anything, what you're looking at, let me know. What do you think of this one, etc. But thanks for watching, and you'll see me in the next one. Have a good one.